Greetings everyone and welcome back to a new video. Now, today it's actually going to be a little bit different because I wanted to do a book review. Who thought this would happen on my channel? But yeah, I've actually spent a lot of time reading lately. I say a lot, it's usually during breaks of my work or whenever I really feel like it at home, which has been happening quite often as of late. But I have mentioned before in one of my other videos that I just enjoy Star Wars, and that's obvious given my profile picture, my banner, my content, everything I talk about. But the one thing I've never really fully dived into, which is what I wanted to do since so many years ago, is actually just into the Legends continuity, I guess, in this sense. Because before I was interested, it used to just be called the Expanded Universe. Yeah, so I finally got around to reading this bad boy over here, which is now a Legends cover. I have some books at the back that I believe are still from the original book cover and not the Legends variation. That being said though, unlike me disliking this whole turning everything story-wise into non-canon and everything from 2013 or 14 upwards plus the movies blah 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 to canon, I've never been a big fan of it. I don't voice it as often, but I'm just simply not a big fan of it. That being said though, I do want to mention that the actual art style of the covers are, in my opinion, way better than the originals. Let's just not talk about the second book of the Bane trilogy because they made them look horrendous. I don't know who did the art style. I'm sure people know what I'm talking about. I'll even probably show it on the video just to let people know that it's horrendous. And do I even... You know what? I actually do have it is, I mean, it has a Legends banner, but I do know they remastered, I say remastered, they changed the cover, but I'm talking about this one. I don't know what to think of it, but it's not something that I would have... Anyways, but I wanted to mostly talk about Heir to the Empire. I have not read the second and third book yet. They will arrive hopefully tomorrow, so I have enough to read, and I'll be doing that at work in the mornings usually, that 1 hour of free time that I have. But now specifically, I just wanted to talk about the first book. I'm not going to make it spoiler-free, obviously, because one, it's been like, what, 20 years ago since the book came out. Second, I don't know how to talk about it spoiler-free. I'm not that good at that. And yeah, so... There's a couple things I want to mention. There's some goods and bads about the book that I've really enjoyed, and maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. That's completely fine. Knowing Star Wars fans, 90% of you will probably disagree with my opinion, and that's completely fine. I would too. So, obviously, this is Thrawn's reveal as a character, which I can't act that surprised or think that he's such a cool character, because obviously I've seen him in Rebels already and in some other content, and I also have heard about the books for many, many years, and I had some ideas and backstory about him. I obviously didn't read it when it came out because I think I was just barely born. So I don't have that initial reveal of like, oh, there's a Grand Admiral still roaming about carrying the orders of the Emperor, blah, 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 that sort of thing. That didn't catch me at all. I do have to say, I do enjoy reading him as a character. I kind of appreciate them actually trying to make him like outsmart everyone, but obviously they still have to sort of make it so that the good guys do win. So they have to like make some mumbo jumbo or some luck that has to be involved in the fight, especially in the final fight, to make it so that the Admiral sort of loses, even though he doesn't see it as a loss. He just sees it as an inconvenience. And I do appreciate that about his character, because it shows that he's not going to give up. He's not just going to cower back and, like, I'll get you back later, like some typical comical evil villain. No, it's just, it's just a complete different sort of character. And I just enjoy what they've made for him as a character. So I wanted to actually specifically talk about the main characters. Obviously, Luke, Han, Mara, Leia, that sort of stuff. The first thing I actually want to mention outside of that is the interaction between Ben Kenobi and Luke Skywalker. I do have to say, I kind of disagree with the idea that Force users or Force ghosts do actually end up turning into, or just become literal one with the Force and just disperse around the universe and just be that, and there's nothing else. There's probably no communication. I don't know if that is the idea they wanted to make within this book, but I got the idea that Ben Kenobi is no more you can't call him back, you can't talk to him, you can only recall what he has said to you, and he kind of just sort of fizzles out and dies in some sort of sense. Obviously, I think by this time, Force Ghosts and Immortality was not in the talks, as far as I'm aware. I don't know if the whole Force Ghost Immortality came at the original trilogy or one of the books. I'm pretty sure it came within the prequels. It kind of showed that a lot of Jedis were just, they had their typical fear of death and they wanted to transcend while being able to still keep their physical being, just not obviously literal physical, but in the sense of being themselves, instead of just becoming one with the Force, because a Jedi probably doesn't still know what that could mean, and they want to keep their consciousness through becoming a Force ghost. But Ben Kenobi just thought, you know what, it's been like, 6 years, 7 years, I'm done. See ya, that's it. So I wasn't a big fan of that. I kind of disliked it. I would have been okay if Ben Kenobi would have been less active and he had some other Force duties in the background that we don't know of, and that would have kept like some sort of mystery for future storylines. But it's been written the way it has, and there's nothing we can obviously do about it anymore. Luke Skywalker, as a character, I've thoroughly enjoyed. One of my biggest fears within this book was to it become very fan servicey, in the sense of like all the good characters from the original trilogy are coming back together for one last journey, that sort of thing. And it would have felt very forced, and they had to clamp them together because the fans would have loved that. That sort of fan service I'm talking about, it hasn't felt forced once. Everything felt very connected, like it was supposed to happen this way, and it's not like, oh great, this character suddenly pops up with the other character. No, obviously it has happened in the story. Han Solo and Luke have met, I believe, once or twice. One time, I believe, by meeting Lando, because Han Solo needed to go to Lando, I believe, to find a slicer for Leia, and Luke had to go to Lando because of something he found in Dagobah. That could have been seen as it being forced, but because they were separate storylines and they both had a reason to go there, I don't think, to me, it felt that forced. And obviously Han and Luke met later on near the end in Merkra? I'm not that good with the names, by the way, because they just come out of nowhere. Yeah, I believe that was the name of the planet. I'm pretty sure foresty with the city. That I also forgot the name, Hiliadi or something like that. I apologize. The city has been mentioned like 3 times near the end of the story, and that was it. So I can't remember fully. I'm not that good with names, I can tell you that much. I would have to like reread them so often to actually get their names stuck in my head. But yeah, those are the only 2 interactions where I would have thought maybe it could feel forced. But again, they had very big reasons for them to be there, so that it kind of just, like I said, it felt very natural. I do have to say I enjoy Luke very much as a character. They have kept his personality to the point, very calm, and sometimes obviously he still shows his humanity, if that makes sense. Obviously Jedis are just very stoic and they're very like reserved and stuff like that, but Luke sometimes is able to show some call of urgency, or he can mutter curse words to himself when something doesn't go the way he wanted to go, and that's completely fine. But most of the time he has just shown his typical calm demeanor that we've seen in Return of the Jedi. And I really like that. They've kept that personality and it really fits him, and I really enjoy seeing that. Now, I do also want to mention the creatures that are able to repel the Force throughout a certain area. I guess it could kind of make sense for the story, obviously, because it forces Luke to not rely on the Force. I wish that would have been like, that storyline would have been something bigger. I'd argue a creature that's able to repel the Force should have been like thoroughly explored way more than the book has offered. Because if the Force is all around us, it binds us and blah blah blah, that sort of quote you want to say, but then there are creatures that are completely able to negate the Force within a certain area, that seems pretty overpowered. And I'm surprised if a story a story is writing creatures like that such things have never been used before, at least so far. Obviously, they might have used these creatures after this book has been written, but within the prequels, the original trilogy, any movie, the shows, whatever, they haven't really made use of these creatures to repel the Force so far that I'm aware of. At least it's been a while, but yeah, you'd think such a creature would be used more often. And if so, why? There has to be a reason they are able to repel the Force. I enjoyed Luke and Mara's interaction a lot. It felt very organic, natural, yet again, I do have to say. Obviously, I do sort of know where Luke and Mara will end up on. Like, it's impossible to not stay spoiler-free when it comes to these storylines because they've been mentioned within forums, blah, blah, blah. And I feel like everyone knows it even without reading the books. So I do want to actually find out how they end up like that because I myself don't know. So far, the first book hasn't really shown any sort of amicity, is that how you say it? Like friendship, whatever. Nothing of the sort. It's still just sort of like, if anything, I don't think they've made up together yet. So I just simply don't know within the first book what's going to happen to them. That probably will be later expanded on the second and third book, and maybe later on in any of the other books. Because I actually, if this review is going nicely for me, and obviously this is the first time I talk about a book, and I'm not really good at doing this sort of stuff, but I hope that the more often I do it, that the better this sort of content becomes. And I don't know, then I can read the other opinions of others, as long as you keep it, in this case, spoiler-free within any other books, because obviously I want to follow up on them. There's a lot I want to read. I do want to actually mention one of the bad things. It's actually the only annoying part I've found in this book. I feel like the whole Kashyyyk arc felt a little bit out of place. And I was also annoyed that they delved into the Kashyyyk arc right in the middle of the good parts with Luke, Mara, Han, and that whole Mirkra arc. I felt like if they would have had to show what happened in Kashyyyk, it should have been done either... Well, obviously, because of the way the story is written at the end, where Leia contacts Han Solo about bad news in Coruscant, blah, 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 it would have been probably better to do it before Mirkra. So I feel like it's kind of fine to do the Kashyyyk arc, but just do it slightly before anything that's happening between Luke, Mara, and Han Solo. I get the idea of wanting to take a break from that story to talk about something else, but that story of the Kashyyyk one felt a little bit dragged on, and I was just there thinking, it's fine to write that. It's not that I didn't dislike, or it's not that I disliked the arc. It's just like they put it in a part of the story where I wasn't interested in knowing about that right now. I just wanted to get back to the actual, like, the exciting part, for me at least. If they would have done Kashyyyk earlier, I would have actually enjoyed it much more than now. So, yeah, I guess the bad stuff I want to mention is just that it felt out of place, and it would have been better to mention this earlier than later in the story. I also really enjoyed Han Solo and Lando's adventure. Again, I have to say it's going to be said very often. It felt very organic. It didn't feel fan servicey at all. You'd think that an adventure of Han Solo and Lando would have been like, the writer wants to do this so that people are very excited because they know they've been sort of partners in the past. They've hated each other because, Han Solo got his ship, blah, blah, blah. This would be like great to read, but none of the sort. It was actually very well done. And yeah, I've enjoyed it. It was a small arc. Yeah, nothing else needs to be said about that. It was just like a very small, mischievous adventure from two smugglers. Aside from that, I don't believe I want to mention anything else from the book. I've honestly thoroughly enjoyed it, and I can't talk much about the overall arc from the trilogy because I obviously haven't read the second and third book. I will definitely make a book review on the second book and the third book, and obviously I will be talking about those as well, and I will give them a score for myself because I like scoring things. I think any human likes scoring stuff, and I'll show on screen which score I will be giving Heir to the Empire, the book one of the Throne trilogy. There's obviously so many things I have missed talking about. Like, I haven't really mentioned Paleon. I haven't even mentioned Cabalth, if that is the correct term. I just feel like I can't talk much about those characters yet because I feel like they will be more fleshed out in the second and third book. Especially Joruus, I believe. Joruus was kind of just like all talk, no show for the first part of the story, and I feel like he'll definitely be a threat in the future when maybe Luke meets him and something's gonna happen. I don't know. I actually don't know what's gonna happen. I have no idea where the second and the third story is gonna go to. And I'm actually glad they ended it on a cliffhanger. because I can start reading it tomorrow, because we already know that in the story, Akbar has been accused for treason, which is probably the fucking Bothans doing, so that he can take the power over the New Republic. But yeah, I enjoy that because I know what I'm expecting in the second book immediately at the start. It will probably be the first arc, and then we'll move on to more pressing matters. So yeah, all in all, a very good book, a very good entry for any people that want to start getting into the Legends continuity, whether that is because you are interested in the characters of the original trilogy and you want to know what happened to them in this continuity. Obviously, you can also just, like I did, I've read a lot, mostly more Old Republic books and comics. Like, I would have loved to talk about the Knights of the Old Republic comic series, but I've already read those many years ago. Maybe I'll read them again at some point and talk about it, you know, but for now, obviously, because I've already read all the issues, there's no point into it. That's going to be it. I'll be scoring the first book, Heir of the Empire, a whopping 9 out of 10, purely because of the Kashyyyk arc. Probably if that was written differently or just placed differently, I would have probably said it was a 10 out of 10. So, get fucked. But yeah, excited to read the second book. Again, it will take me a while to finish it because I usually read it during my work breaks and in the mornings on the days that I don't work. So generally, I have about 1 hour each day to read, and that's usually for me based on my reading speed between 50 and 60 pages. So it will take me a couple days to finish it. So maybe next week or the week after, you will get my thoughts of the second book, and then 2-3 weeks after that, you'll get my thoughts of the third book, and then I'll have to figure out where to go with the story, because I believe they do have like a storyline written in the book, how to go to the next one. So I know, for example, the X-Wing is more so a prequel. So I'm currently reading the Throne trilogy, and they mentioned that afterwards it's good to read the Jedi Academy trilogy, I, Jedi, Black Fleet Crisis, Corellian trilogy, Hand of Throne duology, Scourge, the New Jedi Order, the Darkness trilogy, Legacy of the Force, Fate of the Jedi, and Crucible. But there's probably more than that. Who knows? And if you guys know better than the book, let me know. I'll happily read those as well. Obviously, I'm not just gonna read the books after the Return of the Jedi. You bet your ass I'll get back into the Old Republic at some point soon anyways, and even further before those times. So, yeah. In the meantime, I want to thank you all for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you guys have enjoyed this sort of like video content, because again, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not really good at this sort of stuff. But if you have any tips on how to make this better, let me know. But yeah, that's gonna be it for me. I'm gonna thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next video. Take care and peace.